I am about to show you something that sounds completely unbelievable. It is a powder you mix into water, spray across your entire lawn, and within 48 hours, every dandelion, every clover patch, every plantain and chickweed turns black and dies. Meanwhile, as all of that is happening, the grass gets darker green, not burned, not damaged, but genuinely darker, thicker, and healthier, as if you just fed it the best meal it has had all season. I know how that sounds, and I am going to prove it to you with chemistry, not tricks, because once you understand exactly why this works, you will not wonder why nobody told you about it sooner. You will know exactly why, because the lawn care industry generates billions of dollars every year selling you a $40 bottle of the same result you're about to get for $2. And a $2 solution does not fund a marketing department. The product costs $3 to $5 for a bag that covers an entire season. You can buy it at any garden center, any hardware store, or online. I will tell you right now there is a real chance you have walked past it dozens of times without knowing what it was capable of. If this is the kind of information you want, the stuff the lawn industry would rather you did not have, subscribe before we go any further, because every video on this channel is built on exactly this principle. What actually works versus what you have been sold. No sponsors, no affiliate deals, just the chemistry. Let's start with the problem because understanding it is what makes the solution obvious. Killing weeds is not actually difficult. Boiling water kills weeds. Straight vinegar kills weeds. A handful of salt poured directly onto a dandelion kills it by tomorrow morning. The problem has never been killing weeds. The problem is killing weeds without killing the grass around them. That is the challenge. That is the thing that makes selective weed control expensive and complicated, and that is the gap the lawn care industry has spent decades monetizing. Most weed killers work in one of two ways. They either kill everything they touch, which means you have to crouch down with a spot sprayer and target each individual weed one at a time, or they use synthetic broadleaf herbicides, the ones with active ingredients like 2,4-D that target broadleaf plants specifically. Those work, but they cost $20 to $40 a bottle. They require careful handling, and the companies selling them have spent decades making sure you believe you need their specific branded version, rather than understanding what the active mechanism actually is. There is a third option, one that has existed for over a century, one that professional groundskeepers at golf courses have used quietly for decades, one that costs pennies per application and works because of a biological difference between grasses and broadleaf weeds that the plants themselves cannot work around. It is called ferrous sulfate, also called iron sulfate, iron 2I sulfate. You may see it at the garden center labeled as moss killer or lawn iron. Same compound, different packaging. Here is the biology, and this is the part that changes how you think about your lawn permanently. Ferrous sulfate is concentrated iron dissolved in water. When you spray it across your lawn, two completely different things happen simultaneously to two completely different categories of plant. Broadleaf weeds, dandelions, clover, plantain, chickweed, creeping Charlie, ground ivy, and henbit have wide, flat leaves with a large surface area relative to the plant's root mass. When ferrous sulfate solution lands on those leaves, it is absorbed rapidly through that broad surface. At the concentration we are talking about, the iron overwhelms the cellular chemistry of the plant. The cells cannot process that volume of iron through their normal metabolic pathways. Within 24 to 48 hours, the leaves blacken and die. The plant is dead from the foliar uptake alone, regardless of what the roots are doing. Grass is a monocot, narrow upright blades with a fraction of the surface area relative to root mass. Some ferrous sulfate lands on the grass blades, but the quantity absorbed through that small surface area is not enough to cause cellular damage. Instead, that smaller dose of iron is taken up as a nutrient. Iron is one of the essential micronutrients required for chlorophyll synthesis, and chlorophyll is what makes grass green. The grass absorbs the ferrous sulfate at the lawn level and uses it to produce more chlorophyll. It gets darker green, it gets healthier. The weed dies, the grass feeds from the same application at the same time. This is not a lawn hack. This is not a trick or a workaround. This is the straightforward biological difference between monocots and broadleaf plants, and ferrous sulfate exploits it so cleanly that once you understand it, spending $40 on a bottle of synthetic herbicide feels genuinely unreasonable. Now, I know what the next question is. If it works this well and costs this little, why does the industry not tell you about it? The answer is the same answer it always is. There is no profit margin in a $5 bag of ferrous sulfate. You cannot build $1 billion lawn care brand on a naturally occurring mineral that people need to buy once or twice a season, and that requires zero proprietary formulation. The money is in the branded spray bottles, the annual treatment subscriptions, the four-step seasonal programs that run $150 to $200 a year and keep you locked into a purchasing cycle. Ferrous sulfate disrupts that entire model, so it sits on the shelf at the garden center labeled as moss killer with no explanation of what else it does, waiting for someone to explain the chemistry. Tell me in the comments right now what weed is making your lawn look the worst this season. Dandelions taking over the front yard, clover spreading through everything, plantain in every bare patch. Whatever it is, name it below because I want to know specifically what we are solving today, and I will tell you in the replies whether ferrous sulfate handles it or whether you need a different approach. Now let's talk about application, because the ratio matters and getting it wrong in either direction causes problems. The formula is 1 cup of ferrous sulfate powder per 1 gallon of water. That is the complete formula. 1 cup, 1 gallon. Dissolve it completely, stirring until the water turns a dark amber and there is no powder remaining at the bottom. 1 gallon of solution covers roughly 200 to 300 square feet depending on your spray density. For a standard front yard, prepare 3 to 4 gallons. Scale from there based on your lawn's actual size. Use a pump sprayer, not a hose end attachment. Hose end sprayers do not give you the concentration control this application requires. A basic pump sprayer from any hardware store, around $15, is the correct tool. Set the nozzle to a fine mist, not a stream, not a jet. You want even surface coverage across the leaf, not puddles that run off before absorption can happen. Walk in slow, overlapping sweeps across the entire lawn. The point of ferrous sulfate is that you do not have to target individual weeds. You spray everything. The biology sorts it out. Dandelion dies, grass feeds. You walked across your yard in 10 minutes rather than crouching over individual plants for 2 hours. Timing is critical. Apply in the early morning or the late evening, never during the middle of a hot, sunny day. The solution needs time on the leaf surface to be absorbed before it evaporates. Morning is ideal because the dew helps the solution adhere. Do not water your lawn for at least 24 hours after application. No irrigation, no hose, and check the weather forecast before you start. Rain within 24 hours washes the solution off the leaf surface before it can be absorbed at the concentration needed to do its work. The weeds survive. Wait for a dry window. Within 24 hours, you will see the beginning of the result. Dandelion leaves curl inward and develop dark edges. Clover leaves get dark spots and begin to collapse. Chickweed flattens and blackens. By 48 hours, most broadleaf weeds in the treated area are visibly dead or dying, and your grass is measurably darker green than it was 2 days ago. Not an overnight miracle, a real, visible, documented improvement in color from the iron-feeding chlorophyll production in every blade of grass on your lawn. One application handles most active infestations. For a heavy weed load, you can do a second treatment 2 weeks later, but do not exceed 3 applications in a single season. Ferrous sulfate acidifies soil slightly with every application. More than 3 treatments in 1 year can push soil pH below the range where grass thrives, which creates a different set of problems. 3 times per season is the documented safe maximum. Here is the part I want to be straight with you about, because I would rather tell you now than have you come back disappointed. Ferrous sulfate is highly effective against broadleaf weeds. Dandelions, clover, plantain, chickweed, creeping Charlie, ground ivy, henbit, common daisy. If your weed problem is in this category, ferrous sulfate is one of the most effective and most economical treatments available to a home gardener. It does not reliably control grassy weeds, crabgrass, goosegrass, quackgrass, annual bluegrass. These weeds have narrow blades like desirable grass. Ferrous sulfate cannot distinguish between them biologically because they are too similar at the structural level. If your primary weed problem is crabgrass, ferrous sulfate alone will not solve it. That requires a pre-emergent strategy, which I am covering in an upcoming video, specifically because it connects directly to what we are building here week by week. And ferrous sulfate is extraordinarily effective against moss, which most people do not realize. Moss is extremely sensitive to iron. One application and moss turns black within hours. If you have shaded areas where moss returns every spring, regardless of what you do, ferrous sulfate is the most direct answer to that specific problem. Before you apply, 3 warnings that matter. First, ferrous sulfate stains everything it contacts permanently and quickly. Concrete, pavers, brick, siding, clothing, skin. The iron oxidizes on hard surfaces and leaves rust-colored marks that are extremely difficult to remove once they set. Be precise at your lawn edges. If the spray drifts onto your driveway or patio, rinse it with water immediately, within seconds, not minutes. Wear clothes you do not care about. Wear gloves. Your skin will turn orange and it takes days to wash off fully. Second, keep pets and children off the treated lawn until the solution has dried completely, which takes roughly 2 to 3 hours under normal conditions. Once dry, iron sulfate is not toxic at lawn treatment concentrations, but wet solution on bare paws or feet causes temporary staining and can cause mild skin irritation. Third, do not apply ferrous sulfate if your soil pH is already below 6. The acidifying effect of repeated applications can push an already acidic lawn below the range where grass grows well. Test your pH before you start. A basic soil test kit costs around $4 and takes 5 minutes. If your pH is above 6, you are clear to apply freely up to 3 times per season. If it is below 6, address the pH first, which is exactly what last week's video covered if you missed it. Here is what happened the first time I used this on my own lawn, and I want to give you the specific numbers because the comparison is what made this real for me. My front yard was roughly 40% clover, not scattered leaves here and there, thick mat-forming white clover crowding out grass across nearly half the bed. I had been pulling it by hand for 2 years. It kept coming back from the root. I tried straight vinegar, which killed the clover, but also burned the grass around it and left brown patches that took weeks to recover. I tried a branded selective herbicide that worked partially, but required 3 applications and cost $27 per bottle. Then I learned about ferrous sulfate, mixed 1 cup per gallon, filled a pump sprayer, walked the entire front yard on a Saturday morning, 15 minutes including mixing time, left it alone for 24 hours. Sunday morning, the clover had dark edges on every leaf. Monday morning, it looked like someone had taken a flame to every clover plant in the yard. Dead, blackened, flattened. And the grass between those dead patches was darker green than it had been at any point in the 5 years I had owned that house. My wife asked if I had fertilized. I had not. That was the iron feeding chlorophyll production in every blade while the clover died around it. Within 2 weeks, the dead clover had broken down and the grass filled in the empty spaces on its own. No overseeding, no patching. The grass simply expanded into ground that suddenly had light, nutrients, and no competition. Total cost of the ferrous sulfate used that morning, approximately $2 from a $5 bag. For context, over the 2 years I spent fighting that clover before finding ferrous sulfate, I had spent around $30 on vinegar-based products that damaged the grass, $27 on a branded selective herbicide that needed 3 applications to do a partial job, and around $40 on hand weeding tools I genuinely believed would be the answer. Just under $100 total. The clover kept winning every season. $2 of ferrous sulfate ended it in 48 hours. If that does not make you question what else the lawn care industry has been charging you full price to solve, I do not know what will. One final thing before I let you go, and it is genuinely the most important piece of context in this entire video. Ferrous sulfate eliminates the weeds that are currently in your lawn. It does not prevent new ones from arriving. If your neighbor's dandelions are sending airborne seeds into your yard every spring, you will get new dandelions regardless of how many times you treat. Ferrous sulfate handles what is there now. Prevention requires a different tool, which is a dense, thick, healthy lawn that does not leave the bare soil gaps where weed seeds can germinate in the first place. And building that lawn is exactly what this channel is doing week by week. Last week, we covered soil pH, the foundation everything else depends on. This week, ferrous sulfate kills the weeds, competing with your grass for space and resources. Next week, the specific mowing technique that makes grass grow so dense that new weed seeds cannot get established in the first place. Each video is one piece of a complete system that costs less than $20 per year and outperforms any professional treatment program I have ever seen priced against it. If you are not subscribed, you are getting pieces without the whole. Every video connects to the last one. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so each piece lands in your feed when it goes live. And before you go, two things I want from you in the comments. First, tell me what your worst weed is right now and describe your lawn specifically, how much of the yard it has taken over, and what you have already tried on it. I read every single comment on this channel, and I will tell you directly whether ferrous sulfate handles your specific situation or whether you need something from a future video. Second, if you have already tried ferrous sulfate on your lawn, tell me what happened. How fast did the weeds respond? Did the grass color change noticeably? And what weed were you dealing with? That real-world data from real yards is more useful to every other person watching this than anything I can tell them from my own front yard. I will see you next week with the mowing system. It is the piece that ties all of this together. If this story changes the way you look at the weeds in your garden, please subscribe and like the video. We are uncovering the history and the science they tried to bury. Let's grow the future together. The next treasure in our lawn care vault will be opened very soon.